Hello and welcome to the KST Healing Hub. I'm Jordania. I'll be your hostess for the day, and it is my absolute honor to introduce a true pioneer in the field of Vedic astrology or Jyotish, and truly a guiding light in the world of spiritual and psychological exploration. As one of the first astrologers to bring this ancient wisdom of Jyotish to America in I think it was the 1980s, Dr. Harness has not only transformed countless lives through his insightful readings, but he's also laid the foundation for its study in the West by founding the American College of Vedic Astrology, or ACVA, with a unique approach that weaves together the precision of Jyotish, the depth of psychology, and the intuitive resonance of many other modalities such as tarot. Dr. Dennis Harness offers a holistic path to self-discovery. And as someone fortunate enough to be mentored by him, I can attest to his profound wisdom, to his true compassion, and his dedication to illuminating our human journey. So please join me in welcoming the esteemed Dr. Dennis Arness. Thank you so much for being here. You were one of the first people to introduce Jyotish to America in the 1980s. May I ask what initially drew you to Vedic astrology, and what challenges did you face bringing this ancient system to a Western audience very unfamiliar with its principles?
Well, so nice to connect, Jordania. And yeah, what happened? Well, actually, just to go back a little bit, people always ask me, how did I get into Vedic astrology? And I always say it was that lifetime in Tibet that really hooked me in a few incarnations before, probably a few hundred years before. But anyway, definitely. But anyway, this lifetime, when I was about 12, I would memorize the sun signs in the paper, so I was drawn to it as a kid. I always knew that I wanted to be a psychologist when I was even asked when I was a young boy, like 10, 12, 13 years old. But anyway, in terms of Vedic astrology, what happened was in 1980, I was taking a yoga teacher's training course up at Ananda, at the cooperative community in Nevada City, California. And I presented a talk on Western astrology on the chart of Paramhansa Yogananda and Sri Yukteswar, his guru, who is a great Vedic astrologer. It's a beautiful chapter in Autobiography of a Yogi called Outwitting the Stars, chapter 16. It's really beautiful about the dialogue between Yogananda and his teacher about astrology. So, but at the time I was really naive. I didn't realize there was a difference between Western and Vedic, because at that point it was called Hindu astrology. So what happened was Swami Kriyananda was at my talk. We had to do this presentation after a 3-month yoga teacher's training course. So he came to hear my talk along with the other quote graduates of this 3-month program. And after the talk, he came up to me and he said, I think you should go and meet this man, Chakrapani Ulal from Los Angeles, who was a direct disciple of Nityananda, actually, Swami Nityananda, and then Muktananda, his successor, was kind of like Chakrapani's dear friend. So they were like buddies together. And Chakrapani came over in 1977 from India. So anyway, 1980, I go ahead and make the appointment, and boy, it was a lot of money. It was $75, to get a session. And I thought, man, this is a lot of money here. But this was, back in 1980. It wasn't really that much, but it was still, it seemed significant at the time. But anyway, I went down to LA, and it was in Santa Monica, California, which is where Swami Muktananda's headquarters were basically going on. And Chakrapani did this session for me, and it was just really powerful. was actually more powerful than getting Shaktipat from Muktananda, to be honest with you. My
Oh,
session with Chakrapani was so powerful because I just felt that my whole body filled with Shakti. And he told me early on in the session, he goes, I know your mind very well, perhaps better than you. And by the end of the session, he had convinced me there was truth to that. He also told me I'd be married twice, and I hadn't even been engaged once. So that was a little disconcerting, but sure enough, that did come to pass. And it was just this powerful experience. But at the time, there weren't many books written on Vedic astrology except from India. And they had a lot of Sanskrit and Hindi terms in it. So it was hard for me to follow, although he did recommend this one particular book, which I did buy, called Predictive Hindu Astrology by Dr. B.V. Raman, who was the most famous Vedic astrologer of the last century. So I did get that book. And I, was really impressed with my chart because I get to be a Leo. I go from Virgo into Leo. And so I always jokingly say, the main reason I got into Vedic astrology is I get to be a Leo. But anyway, much more fun. I love Virgo, but much more fun to be a Leo. Anyway, I call it getting an astrological makeover because the Vedic system is based on the sidereal zodiac. So there's about a 23-degree difference, a little over 23-degree difference when I was born. So you have to subtract the 23 degrees from all your planets in the Western chart.
and that's Lahiri's.
Yeah,
Lahiri system.
Ainamsha, that particular degree difference. Ainamsha just means the difference between the two systems. And so anyway, but to be honest with you, I kind of put it on the back burner and I continued to study Western astrology until about 1987. A book came out called Ancient Hindu Astrology for the Modern Western Astrologer by James Braha. And that book kind of provided the bridge for me to go deeper into the Vedic system. And a number of other things happened. I started organizing the conferences back in 1991, and that was a few years later. But I was starting to bring people over from India. Dr. David Frawley and I organized the original conferences. Actually, the first one was in '92, so it kind of dates me a little bit. But anyway, and 30 some years later, I'm still vertical. So, but I put on a lot of conferences over those years, and kind of that was my dharma, was to help bring Vedic astrology to the West, as well as Dr. Frawley and a number of other colleagues. So that's a long answer to your question, but maybe you can help me fill in any gaps there that I've missed.
Why, one tidbit I'm so curious about. You mentioned that Shaktipat with Muktananda, that wasn't as intense as the Shaktipat you experienced in your first Vedic reading. How did it compare with Guru Mayaji? Or did you have Shaktipat with Guru Mayaji,
Well,
who took over from Muktananda after his transition?
it's interesting you bring that up because at that time, 1980, she was his assistant, and she would give out the names to people that came up for Shaktipat. So they gave me the name Dharmapal. It was a little card, and means protector of righteousness. And it was powerful with him, not to say, with this peacock feather and all that. I felt something. But I think just being in the room with Chakrapani for a whole hour, that really vibrated. But it was kind of a funny little thing. I said, I think I got more Shaktipat from Guru Maya because she was much more beautiful than he was.
Stunning,
Yeah,
stunning. And then when you
she
get those two
was
Rottweilers side by side, woo!
he was so charismatic though too. But he to me looked like a jazz musician from another planet. I mean, he was just so cool, with his beanie and the whole thing. So it was a very powerful experience. But Guru Mai was one that I felt resonance with, and she's born just 3 months before me in June of '55. So our charts are somewhat close to each other in that sense. So I felt a resonance with her, stronger, honestly. And I had some mystical experiences with her later on, not in person, but just through transmission. So anyway, I have a lot of respect for that whole lineage. I don't mean, again, I don't mean to put anyone down in that lineage because it's a beautiful lineage. And Nityananda, who was Muktananda's guru, was Chakrapani's guru. So so I felt this whole download that came through that lineage, even though Yogananda and Sri Yukteswar and Babaji and Krishna and Jesus Christ are more my lineage that I'm connected with. As a matter of fact, one thing that did happen, which I don't share that often, but I'll share it with you, is that that night after I got Shaktipad and had that session with Chakrapani, Yogananda appeared to me in a dream. And he literally walked right through this wall and came into
Oh,
the room where I was at. And he said to me, "What are you doing with this man? He is not your guru." So he kind of chastised me for it.
wow.
It brings a tear to my eye because it was like, whoa,
I can feel it.
because
That's
Yogananda was, very much in all the lineages are about loyalty, about loyalty. That doesn't mean you can't experience other lineage, but he felt I was stepping maybe too far, and he was trying to kind of correct me and reprimand me a bit to stay focused, stay focused on Kriya Yoga, you know. But it's all good. They're all part of the journey, and they're all great lineages. To me, they're bona fide lineages, and there's a few and far between, really. I find that are really bona fide. So anyway,
that
that's
is
that's
true
my little
divine.
that's my guru, my story, and my Muktananda story.
That's true divine love. It's like he was your guru, that was your lineage. Yeah, the Kriya lineage is extraordinary. Babaji, just incredible. But, but the Siddha ashram, truly wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And you were able to find Vedic astrology, even though you already knew it with Lahiri's and Sri Yukteswar's books and Yogananda. But that gave you the impetus to, or gave you the indication that that was a part of your dharma.
Yeah. And I should correct that Lahiri, even though that's the Ainamsha, is not Lahiri Mahashaya. Lahiri was a famous astronomer who basically made that calculation back in 1950. There was a council of astronomers that met.
Oh my goodness.
Now it happens that the name Lahiri is there, but Lahiri
Yes.
Mahashaya was a householder. He wasn't really, to my knowledge, wasn't a Vedic astrologer, but he was initiated. You know, he initiated Yukteswar, and then Yukteswar was this great Jyotishi. So a little book that I would highly recommend by Sri Yukteswar called The Holy Science, which talks about the yuga theory, these bigger yugas, these bigger planetary yugas, which maybe I've read some of your questions, and maybe at the end remind me and I'll mention about that. I'll talk about that.
It's an incredible book, but I
Yeah.
haven't read it for decades, so that'll be on my homework list.
And a
And
little
that correction, thank you for making it, is why Dr. Dennis Harness is my mentor. Very grateful. Oh, by the way, one more thing. You mentioned studying psychology. So you primarily focused on Jungian psychology, is that correct?
Yeah, I went to school. Well, actually, I started out, my degree was in psychology and sociology, my bachelor's degree. And I graduated from Sacramento State, California, with that dual degree. And then for my master's, I actually got a master's degree from the University of Pacific, behavioral medicine, which was the application of behavior therapy to the medical field. And it was very more rigid,
Very rigid.
Yeah,
Protocols, protocols, protocols.
exactly. And a lot of running the rat labs and all that stuff, learning psychology of learning. I had to run the rat labs and all that. It was an experience, but it was good because I learned a lot. Behavioral psychology has its point, but it's a little bit boring compared to transpersonal psychology and humanistic psychology. I find it's just too rigid. You feel like you're in a Skinner box, literally, in terms of that, as you know. So, but anyway, I went ahead and got my master's degree there, and I worked in the chronic pain field for a decade in San Francisco at the University of Pacific Dental School. But I worked at a facial pain research center where we were doing research, and I was like a medical psychologist for a decade. I did research and published papers and book chapters and a lot of stuff, and had my dissertation through research there that was published in the Clinical Journal of Pain, and kind of did that whole thing where you can die in the footnotes, but
What was your dissertation on?
it was on the comparison of clinical characteristics uh, of myogenic TMJ internal derangement and atypical facial pain. So I was looking at three different types of chronic pain, facial pain problems, from like headache to jaw pain to atypical pain, which would be something really more difficult to diagnose, you know. So, but anyway, I did looked at the MMPI scores and Beck Depression Scale and some other scales, and found that the people that struggled with the myogenic or atypical facial pain had much more higher scores psychologically than the internal derangement people that actually had a physical, disc displacement in their jaw. So anyway, but it got published in the Clinical Journal of Pain. That was I did that back in '88. I graduated in '88 from the California Institute of Integral Studies, which was where my PhD is from in clinical psych. Um, it's actually counseling psychology is the program. But anyway, that was my dissertation. And then, like I said, I got it published. And I had some other articles published as well. And that was a good run for about 10 years. And at the time, I was doing the astrology on the side, actually. And I really didn't start seeing clients professionally until 1988, right after I graduated, from college, got my PhD, and then I started practicing. And I was still doing the other work for about 6 years. I did both. And then in '94, we moved to Sedona from the Bay Area. We lived in Marin County for the last several years before we moved over here to Sedona. We've been here, you see now, it's going to be 31 years. It's 31 years this month, actually. Yeah, we've been in Sedona. So I always say from pain into pleasure.
It's true. Sedona is one of my favorite places on earth. I'm
Yeah.
so glad you're there.
And
That,
now, are you getting to come in person? I'm always a little confused. Are you going to be able? You can't. You got to do it through Zoom. Is that right?
yes,
That's
signed up
right.
for Zoom.
Right. Because of your situations with needing to complete some things there. Right.
Yes, unfortunately.
Well, Zoom will be great, and then you can whatever you can take in right at the time, and then Kashanti is also going to record it, so you can watch it anytime. And then
Perfect.
he's so much of a perfectionist, he'll edit it. Excuse me, like a month later, and you'll get a real polished version of the whole conference. So
So the conference that's coming up for people that would like to know more about it, do you have
yeah, real simple. It's just August 20th to the 25th, so it's in 2 weeks. So it's kind of a short turnaround. But if they're interested, the website is just real simple. It's just VedicAstrologySedona.com. And it
okay,
has the whole itinerary and everything, and you can sign up there through there. And again, if you can't make it to Sedona, you can do it through virtual through Zoom. So it'll give
perfect.
you the option to do either one in person. Although, I'm old school, so that's why this is the first time I've done a conference in person since 2021. So I took a 4-year hiatus and kind of stopped doing them for 4 years. And then this is the first one
Oh
since
my
that
goodness.
time.
I I thought you had been doing them. Wow, I'm truly excited about attending. And you're doing another one in September. This might not air until after that. If so, I'm so sorry. Hopefully
Right.
there'll be recordings and hopefully you'll be doing more
One
because
in September is just called Astrology Weekend. A friend of mine's putting that on, but there's two of us, Charlotte Benson and myself, that are speaking on Vedic astrology at this weekend seminar in Sedona. It actually is from I think the 12th till the 15th of September. And people contact me, I can get them the information. I can forward the information about that conference. I don't have the website really handy, but anyway, if they Google Astrology Weekend Sedona, they'll find it.
perfect. And you've done so much. so many seminars, and you are the founder of the American College of Vedic Astrology, or ACVA, and that was a landmark achievement, and that was many years ago. Can you please share the vision behind starting ACVA, and how did it evolve over the years to shape the study of Jyotish in the West? You've also written an amazing book that I have. I have a couple copies. I carry it with me most of the time. It's a constant joy and reference.
Thanks for reminding me. I need to order some copies of that. I'm out of it myself. But anyway, yeah, it's actually this is actually it was you've probably never seen this cover of it. This is a book I wrote called The Nakshatras, the Lunar Mansions of Vedic Astrology, and that was published in India.
No,
Uh,
wow, no, you know what? I'm gonna
it's like a
pause this.
hard copy, hardback copy of it. They did it for me in India, but the original one was done in paperback. You know that you have the purple one. Yeah.
I'm gonna,
All right.
Here's the paperback, and I have it. I love it. I I have to have two copies because I'm heads in the clouds a lot, and yeah, it is an absolutely wonderful book. So you have the hard copy. Did you say that's available as hard copy, or that's no
Now,
longer
if,
available?
if you Googled it, probably through India, trying to remember the publisher. It's a long name, Motilal, Motilal, Varanasi, Varanasis. Probably if you Google it, you know, India version or something like that. But that's the cover, what it'll look like, something
It's
like that.
it's beautiful and love Ganesha.
Yeah.
So, how is Ganapati associated with Vedic astrology?
He's kind of considered the god of Vedic astrology, you know, and it's interesting because Ganapati Ganesha, he removes obstacles. He's called the remover of obstacles. But your chart, actually, the idea with the chart is to help us to take discriminative action in our life so that we don't, so we can go down roads that are good for us. And Ganesha also puts obstacles in our way sometimes so we don't go down roads that aren't so great for us. So see, to me, the keynote of good astrology is to help us to take discriminative action in our life. It's not to take away our free will. We have free will, we have the grace of the divine, but these patterns of destiny are there. It's called prabdha karma, the karma that we're working on in this lifetime. But how you work with it is your free will and the grace. But still, these patterns are still there, and they will show up. But again, how you work with it is another is your free will. It's called kriyamana, the karma of your action. So
Love Ganesha. Yes, I love that. That energy is incorporated into so much of Jyotish. And it's true. Challenges are put in our path and taken away, for good reason. Are you still involved with the college? Are you looking to do more seminars?
yeah, what it is that I helped to form with Dr. David Frawley the American Council of Vedic Astrology back in 1995. And
Mm.
that was a nonprofit trade organization. We had memberships and things like that. And we built up to about 500 members. But Bill Levesey, who helped me co-found the college, the American College of Vedic Astrology, um, he and I started working on it with a man, Michiel Bonder, who's the originator of Proshra's Light software, GeoVision software, out of Fairfield, Iowa. And Michiel and I, and there were other people that contributed, but it was primarily the three of us originally. And we wanted to create a program that would offer more fully certification and would cover all the nuts and bolts of Vedic astrology. So we actually developed a level one, which involves which you took, right? And
With
so
Lynn. Wonderful,
Involves the
wonderful.
astronomy, the introduction, the planets, the houses, the signs, the transits, the nakshatras, other aspects as well, the dashas. And so we developed that, and then we felt like there needed to be a level two. So we developed a level two program that brought in other things like relationship compatibility, medical astrology, different factors, different things that we thought would be good to study at the second level. And more deeper analysis of chart analysis. We developed a whole system called Spica, which is very intense, very in-depth focus on the little nitty-gritty and nuts and bolts of astrology. And then the third level we developed was on counseling skills. So it's a 3-year program. However, each module takes about a month. You get 3 weeks on, 1 week off. You can stop and start, as you know. You don't have to stay the whole 10 months. You can take a break for a couple of months and then come back in to the flow of it. But it's built, it's kind of like building blocks. It builds, builds, builds. I'm curious, what was your experience with it?
Very user friendly, and because it is online, it is at our own pace. Plus, you have full access to an instructor to guide you through it. So, in my case, I worked with Lynn. I think your youngest daughter worked with her as well and liked her. And
Mm-hmm.
she's very knowledgeable. She was a medical doctor prior to becoming an astrologer, and
Mm-hmm.
she's very devoted. Uh, and I said, we can go at our own pace, but she's definitely there too. She wants her passion to become your passion, and
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And she's very grounded with it. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's great. Yeah, Lynn actually, I just talked her into coming to the conference in Sedona. So
you did.
so she's coming with Charlotte and one of the graduates. I can't remember the student's name, but we have one of the graduates coming too because we hope to kind of mention and showcase the college. I'm now you're getting old when you become the president emeritus of a college. So I'm the president emeritus. I help out sometimes. I try to do some fundraising or, like with you, encourage students or clients of mine to take the course because I think it's really well done. And so that's kind of where that's at now. It's Charlotte Benson's the president, and Lynn is the head registrar and one of the head tutors, as you mentioned, Lynn, Buddhist. And
Mhm.
they're doing great. They're getting a lot of new students in. Things are going well with that. So the reason too that we created it was a C3, which is a nonprofit educational organization, so that we could get donations and people could write it off on their taxes, which was really important because we ended up getting one donor that gave us over $1 million over the course of about 7 years. And he probably wouldn't have been able to do that because of the issue of not being able to write it off. Not that that was a big issue for him so much, but he was a philanthropist and he needed to give to nonprofit educational organizations. So that was another impetus for us to but we kept the council because the IRS agent said, no, you need to create two different entities, one that's membership and one that's the college, one's purely educational. So we ended up doing that, and I ran both for a while, quite a while, a number of years, until I handed off the council to a friend of mine, Dennis Flaherty, who's up in Seattle, and he changed the name to the Council of Vedic Astrology, CVA, CVA, and we kept the acronym ACVA for the American College of Vedic Astrology. I should say the website too is acvaonline.org if people want to check out the college.
Wonderful. Yes, so ACVA college
Online.
online.org.
Yeah.
And I will have that information listed at the end. And so anyone can access it. Highly recommend it as well. Um, you mentioned being old enough to be the president emeritus, and congratulations, by the way. They are so lucky to have you. And you've also been a mentor to many aspiring astrologers. You hinted at that, but and that is it's such a profound gift. Uh, Thank you for doing that.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm enjoying
what?
now. I enjoy, like I did actually did with you as well as people that are taking that curriculum of the college, and then I like to do private tutoring, helping people to really quote understand their own chart first, but also to look at famous people's charts and analyze them, and have people practice actually the analysis of the charts. Because one of the things that Chakrapani said to me early on is he said to me, just do charts, because that's the way you're going to really learn. And you can do them for free for family and friends, and just be humble with it and all that. But I think at the end of the day, you have to, uh, you know, get off the paper and actually see people in person and things. I think that's the way you really, really learn much more in depth, is when you start to really apply it. And because some of my greatest teachers have been my clients, really, honestly.
Hmm. Yeah, you've mentioned some amazing students that you've had. There's a doctor up north. By the way, you mentioned charts. I forgot to mention, when you mentioned you and Guru Mayaji's charts are 4 months apart. You and the Pope's chart, isn't it almost identical?
I think we're one day apart.
1 day apart.
I think
Yeah.
he's the 14th of September of 55, and I'm the 13th. So we went very different paths. I am a householder. I've been married 37 years. I've got 3 kids and 2 granddaughters, and he's a pope. So different paths. But he is a baseball fan, and I am too. So we have that in common.
I see it as a similar path. I mean, yes, householder, but still a very holy path. Um, anyway, I think the astrology is. And Jung did say, I believe, that knowing someone's chart is the equivalent of doing a year and a half or 3 years, whatever he said, of therapy. So
Yeah, I didn't really touch on that, but when I went ahead and got my PhD in counseling psychology, California Institute of Integral Studies in San Francisco, where I went to school, is very transpersonal, which just basically means kind of more humanistic psychology. And transpersonal means just going beyond the persona, beyond the personality, more spiritual psychology, we could say.
mhm.
And so Jung became very important to me during those studies, still is. But in 96, I went to teach in Bangalore, India, at a conference there that Dr. B.V. Raman hosted us. And Bill Levesey and I went together, along with Christina Collins, who's also a really great Jyotishi down in Texas now. But anyway, we went, and it was really sweet. B.V. Raman took me into his office, and he pulls open this little drawer. He has a key and opens up this little drawer and pulls out a letter written to him by Carl Jung,
Oh, wow.
and says pretty much what you're saying. That paraphrasing it, um, Carl Jung said that he often cast a chart so that he could see things from it, elucidated certain points that he couldn't see, just doing counseling or psychoanalysis. So he just really acknowledged, the importance of that the planets when you're born is kind of synchronistic to some of your life journey, or your life direction, things like that. And his daughter was a very famous psychologist, astrologer in Zurich, Switzerland. Um, and she did the charts of the analysts as well as their patients, you know. And so Jung's daughter was really, really heavy duty into Western astrology. So, but Jung wrote this letter back in September of 46, 1946. It's dated. I have a copy of it, actually. He, uh, Dr. Rahman made a copy of it for me. It's really
Wow.
sweet of him to do that. Yeah.
Is it
So,
is it framed? I mean,
yeah,
wow.
yeah, yeah. Wait just a second.
Sure.
If you want, remind me. I'll make a copy of it and send it to you.
That is amazing. That's amazing.
So he said, the quote I underlined, or actually, I think Dr. Rahman underlined it, is he said, I must say very often, let me get my reader here, sorry. He goes, I must say very often that the astrological data elucidated certain points which I otherwise would have been unable to understand. So I'm a big fan of Carl Jung and his daughter and the whole transpersonal psychology movement, that has blossomed over the last several decades. When I started first doing astrology professionally back in '88, it was really considered heresy to use that along with counseling,
It,
And
it
then
was, it's true.
it was one of my friends, Greg Bogart, who is a really, really good psychologist, licensed now. They he was on a program, a radio program once. He was mentioning his use of astrology, and the Board of Behavioral Sciences contacted him and said that if he didn't cease and desist, they were going to take his license away. So that
Wow.
was back in the '90s. So but anyway, still it's come a long way, and more and more psychologists, still is still considered kind of out there, but more and more psychologists over the decades have embraced astrology as a diagnostic tool, is what you could use it for. And
Hmm.
the thing about astrology that's really cool, which is not really with any other system, is that it really comes down to, and I consider myself this sometimes, a timing coach. That it's, to me, I use the analogy that for me it's kind of like, because I'm not licensed as a psychotherapist, I have a PhD in counseling psychology. I call it more that I'm like a spiritual life coach, is really what I try to do, and I try to empower people to utilize the chart as a vehicle for transformation, for spiritual and intellectual and just mundane transformation. Most people come to me and they want to know about relationships, they want to know about career, they want to know about spiritual growth, and they want to know about their health. Those are the four cornerstones most people come to me to do. So, although I do astrocartography too, which is the mapping of putting your chart on a map of the world, which is interesting to look at as well.
It
So
really is. It shows, how would you describe it in a nutshell?
it's based on your exact date, time, and place of birth, and it kind of gives you like ley lines of areas that may be stronger for you, areas that may be a little bit more challenging. um, and also another technique I work with called cyclocartography tells us what astrological weather fronts, so to speak, are moving through different areas. So there's the fixed astrocartography, which is always there to draw upon, and then there's the cyclocartography, which tells us the temporary influences. And the reality is, with locational astrology, there's so many different techniques. Those are just some of the basic ones that I learned from Jim Lewis, who was kind of the founder of astrocartography. I took his training back in '92, and it was very, very intense. We even had an open book test, and it was, you needed to have an open book because it was so detailed and so strong. It was a tough test to pass. So anyway, but that's a whole other thing that I love to do for clients, because if they're going to relocate or they're going to travel somewhere, you know, so
It was really helpful for me in determining where I would like to go.
well, too, I think that it's, I'll give you an analogy. I had these two clients come, these women come from, and they'd just gotten back from Bali. And I was doing their astrocartography. And the one lady had a really nice Venus line going through there, and the other woman had a Saturn or Pluto line or something. And the Venus woman absolutely loved Bali, thought it was amazing. And the other woman absolutely hated it, because even though they were staying at the same hotels, the same, going to the same restaurants, everything, same itinerary. And I said to the one lady, the Pluto Saturn lady, I said, "Boy, I could have saved you a lot of money." you know,
Absolutely.
you know. So kind of look before you leap. So I use it myself. As a matter of fact, I'm going to Mexico during hurricane season, so I better take a closer look at mine. as well. I always do it for my wife and I, and my daughter is over in Europe for a couple of months. Aria, actually took a break from the online program. She's made it through module. I think she's on module 5 now, but she took
Wow.
a month break to go travel around Europe for a couple of months, and then she's coming back, and Lynn's kind of going, when's she going to come back and starting it? So Lynn's there, like you said, just kind of holding.
Exactly. Exactly.
So Aria's going to hit the ground running when she gets back home next week. So
Perfect. And she has been. I mean, Lynn might be there to cheer her on and remind her, but Arya's all over it. She's going faster than um, most.
yeah, she's a smart cookie, that girl. She's really
Mhm.
smart. She has a bachelor of science in health and wellness nutrition, and then she wants to integrate the astrology into it. And I think she'll probably go back to school and get her master's degree in counseling. So she'll kind of take on my wife's work as well as a psychologist. And so anyway, she's kind of taking hopefully the best from each of us and then kind of blazing her own trail with what she wants to do.
Well, you mentioned Dr. Frowley, who also did write the foreword for your book,
Mhm.
and who you mentioned you have that history with. And I actually took his Ayurvedic course 30 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, got certified in that. It was amazing. So with her, with her nutritional background, I mean, astrology and Ayurveda go hand in hand. Then she'll be incorporating the psychology.
Yeah, I know we've been talking about that she needs to go ahead and start to integrate more of the Ayurveda into her work, And so she will. She's developed all these products called Bliss Mist, and they're aromatherapies, and she's got what do you call it? Salt, sand. What do you call it for like Epsom salt, but different flower essences, to put in water, to put in your bathtub and things like that. She's developed all these products, and she's only 22. But if
And
you go on
sprays. I think
her
she has. Mhm.
website is it's Goddess of Bliss Miss Gifts, Goddess of Bliss Gifts.com. Anyway, she's so cool. She's a great lady, young lady. So it's amazing to see her blossom.
I can't believe she's only 22. Oh, I'm so looking forward to seeing what she does with all this. With you as a dad, she definitely picked her parents. Yes, definitely picked them well. You mentioned incorporating a lot of different things into astrology, a lot of them being taboo up till recently. Well, even now, like you said, we're still on the outskirts, but historically, it's always been a part. What about tarot? I think you do use tarot
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, I do. I enjoy doing it. I was trained by Angeles Arian, who,
Mhm.
let me grab her book and I'll show it to you.
Okay.
This is Angie's book, the Tarot Handbook, and it's huge.
Oh, she's using the Thoth deck.
Yeah, yeah, the Thodek. She really, this book is, her guru was Joseph Campbell, so she learned
Wow.
cross from him. But each of the cards, she's got like 3 pages on each of the 78 cards, so it's really thorough. Anyway, Angie was my teacher, and so she trained me in the tarot. She had a 3 month course when I went to the California Institute for Transpersonal Psychology in Menlo Park back in 85, 84. And Angie, she was one of my 10 teachers there, professor there, and she taught the course Tarot 1, which was 3 months. And then she taught a Tarot 2, which is another 3 month course. And so I was kind of like maybe we could think like a teaching assistant for her. Like when she would be gone, sometimes I would get to teach a class. I think I got to do that once or twice at least. I can't remember. But anyway, she was just so amazing. One of the best teachers I ever met in my life. So I work with that deck. She pronounces the Toth deck. But the idea is that it really, the pictures were painted by this woman named Lady Frida Harris, and she was an artist out of England. and Aleister Crowley developed it, who was it was kind of a bad boy a little bit, but brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But he was quite controversial, I'll put it that way. But my teacher Angie used to call it the Frida Harris deck because it's her images, her paintings. Their paintings are about this big,
Yeah.
actually, and they're in the Warburg Museum in London. Actually, there was 80 of them. Two of them, I think, she did twice. But anyway, they're quite something, quite something. So I love the symbols because Carl Jung said that the chief mechanism for transforming consciousness is the symbol. That's the chief mechanism for transforming consciousness, and that's to me where astrology comes in too, is that I think we have to stay connected with the sacred stories, as I like to call them, or we could say myths, but I like to call them sacred stories. Um, because if we get too divorced from that in the symbology, we lose the essence, I think, of astrology. Then it becomes what I call digital astrology, which can be brilliant, all that, everything. But at the end of the day, I question whether how fully it transforms consciousness, you know, because you can impress a client with all your predictive techniques, and my basic knowledge of astrology is really, honestly, really fairly basic. Really, I consider myself, compared to some of these people that are like so many techniques, all this stuff. It's way over my head, this lifetime. I kind of strive for profound simplicity is my goal. I'm a Midwestern boy from Kansas City, Missouri, so my wife calls me a Midwestern mystic. So I'm from the show me state, so I'm kind of a little bit meat and potatoes kind of guy. So anyway, but again, to me, astrology is an art science. It's not just an empirical science, it's an art science. And my teacher, Chakrapani, said that it's 25% technique, 25% intuition, and then 50% the grace of God and Goddess.
Oh,
So 75% of the equation is what I call Graceland, you know. And then the techniques, the 25%, you can learn all these techniques, which is great. I mean, there's thousands of techniques, to cover. But again, I think sometimes we can get caught up so much in the technique that we lose the soul of astrology. So that's kind of a warning I give sometimes to my students, and as well as even clients, because sometimes people come away from getting a session and they really feel devastated, because sometimes the astrologer will point out these challenges in the chart, but rather than calling them challenges, they'll say that it's malefic or that it's bad. They use these words which really don't serve consciousness at all. So I would rather use the word challenging, something like that, where you word it in a way that empowers the client rather than imprisons the client.
well, earlier you mentioned Ganapati putting challenges in our path in order to divert us from a path we shouldn't be on. So,
Exactly. And also sometimes these challenges we go through, if we work them through, things we fear, they can become one of our greatest allies and greatest strengths. I mean, I
yes.
used to be terrified of public speaking when I was a kid. I was just terrified, of it. And then as I worked it through over the years, then it became more of one of my strengths. So I kind of think of it like that. Sometimes a planet that, quote, again, the word I don't like to use is afflicted. I like to use maybe challenging in the chart, um, can become, again, a great strength. Like sometimes a person, let's just say with Venus and Virgo, which tends to be a little bit more of a challenge sign for Venus to be in, that person, as one of my teachers from India, K.N. Rao, would say, a planet that has its challenge sign, one of the beauties of it is it teaches humility. It teaches how to stay humble. How to stay humble. Because you can have an incredibly powerful chart. Like, for example, Donald Trump's chart is incredibly powerful.
Yes, it is.
But just because something's powerful does not mean it's powerfully good. I mean, Adolf Hitler had an incredibly powerful chart. But what someone does with that power, that's their free will. And, some people abuse power. And so some people that are very humble, become some of the greatest souls. There's a lot of actually saints that have Venus in Virgo. Shivananda, Swami Shivananda, for example, had Venus in Virgo. Because, see, they're humble, but they're also confident but humble, but also they can't find full happiness from this external world. It forces them to go within to find the joy within themselves rather than external factors. So, anyway.
And as you're talking, I can't help but see the Hessenite garnet on your right hand.
Uh,
Speaking of challenges.
yeah, I'm running Rahu. I got about 5 years in. I'm almost done with Rahu Saturn, so I've only lost a few teeth during this Saturn. It's like Saturn rules bones and teeth, and I got a little arthritis in the neck. So Saturn is knocking on my door. But next month I get to go into Rahu Mercury, so it's a little easier to go into that energy. But anyway, for in Vedic astrology, sometimes we recommend the use of gemstones for the strength in the planets, and so this particular gemstone is called Hessonite or cinnamon stone, and it's used for Rahu. Rahu is an 18-year cycle. Some people never go through it. Some people are born in it. I happened to go into it, about 5 years ago, around the age of 64, and it lasts until I'm 82. And my wife affectionately calls it Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, because it tends to be a little bit of a roller coaster effect. So the idea is the Hessonite's supposed to help balance the energies of Rahu, is the idea. So, anyway, the gemstones are one way. I think one of the greatest remedial measures is, of course, meditation and yoga and spiritual practices. And I would say the other one is to do charitable work, to do work that helps to uplift the community, uplift humanity, is one of the greatest things one can do in terms of remedial measure. Yogananda said that the greatest thing you can do besides God realization or goddess realization, self realization, is to make money for spiritual, educational, and humanitarian endeavors. So it's not a problem being wealthy if you can use the money, if you can be a steward for that, if that's your dharma. To some people's dharma is not to become wealthy. I mean, Jesus's dharma was not to become wealthy, and
Exactly.
even Yogananda, they never worked a regular job, but they were these amazing spiritual teachers that were, again, very humble, and they had all the apostles and devotees and disciples supporting them. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think I met you over 30 years ago when you first moved to Sedona during my Rahu cycle.
Uh,
So you had recommended I wear Hessenite, which I did, and was very grateful.
but you've gone on. Rahu is followed. Jupiter follows Rahu, so you get to go into Jupiter, get the reward for all your efforts of Rahu. When you go into Jupiter for 16 years, these
Yeah.
cycles are based on the position of the moon at birth. So it's a very lunar-based predictive system. They're called dashas or planetary periods.
So
Dasha means segment of one's life. They're like segments of, like, we could think of them like, I like to call them developmental life cycles. Yeah.
so if you're finishing this Rahu cycle, does that mean Jupiter will follow for you?
Correct. Correct.
Yes. And I think, are you thinking about writing another book?
Well, I've been working for a long time on a memoir, and it's kind of a trilogy. And I probably should just go ahead and finish part one or the first book of the trilogy and go ahead and publish that. So I'm leaning towards, when I get into my Mercury cycle, there's no excuse because Mercury rules writing. And I have Mercury in Virgo exalted as best sign. So it should help me. And I'll be in it for a couple of years. So maybe I'll at least get book one done. But it's a memoir. It's called The Karmic Code,
Mm,
Planetary Cycles of the Soul.
I'm looking.
Because, to be honest, I couldn't make this stuff up if I tried. My life has been stranger than fiction. Of course, all of our lives have been, but I've had a it feels like about 4 or 5 lifetimes in one this time around. So
You
I
certainly.
always say I'm a cat with 9 lives, and I've used up 5 of them. So I've got a few more to go.
Yeah, especially in the Jupiter cycle. That's going to be exciting to see how that
Yeah,
transpires.
yeah, that'll take me probably to the end.
Ooh. And, we mentioned all of these shifts and changes and details about how Vedic astrologies and all these different components have evolved. Where do you see this path going in the future?
Well, one thing that concerns me a bit, and it'll be good. It's like a knife can be used for surgery, or it can be used for not such great things. And so I see AI coming in to play very strongly for astrology. But again, it'll be kind of more the digital astrology that I was talking about. It
Mhm.
stripped somewhat of its art science, is my concern. But again, it's the way the world's going, and it'll serve its function too. It'll have its function. I remember I once asked Chat GBT about building an astrological practice. Like, what are some good ways? I was just curious what it would say. And within 2 minutes, it spit out all this stuff, about building an astrological practice. And there were like 12 points that it made. And honestly, I would say 10 out of 12 were really valid. And a couple of them I had never even thought about, you know. So again, it has its point, but it's can be a slippery slope if it's abused or misused. So again, I think I call it chart side manner, that what we do when we're presenting the material in a way, the importance of that, communication, basic counseling skills, these kinds of things, the heart, love, compassion for our clients, things like that. The AI won't necessarily be able to cover those areas to a great extent. Yeah.
So you think AI will be missing the emotional component that does help us navigate the spiritual?
Think it can at least miss some of it for sure. Who knows? I mean, these planets. I mean, this AI. It's like they're literally my other daughter, the older one. Sophia is writing a book on it called AI and I.
Oh, wow.
And the book, she's writing kind of a screenplay, really more so. I think she's leaning towards that. But it's about you know a young woman who falls in love with her AI person. We could say entity, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's happening to a lot of young people, is they become more seen and more connected with the AI entity than they do real people. And it starts to shut them off from basic interpersonal relationships.
Absolutely.
Because the
Absolutely.
AI is carrying back so much of what the person seeing them, more than their friends are, seeing them in some ways more clearly. But again, there's that danger with it. That's where it's tricky. There needs to be more, I think, more, ramps connected with it. Whatever word I'm trying to, you know what I'm saying, guardrails. You know,
Guardrails. Yes.
because it does have its challenge. So anyway, it's a beautiful, beautiful book, screenplay that she's trying to get to Netflix or somebody to take it and run with it, because it's really cool.
Well, it's incredibly timely. So
Yeah,
it's I I look forward to hearing if it gets picked up. I get the
yeah.
it will be picked up. So it's a
I think it will. I think she's she's coming from a place of wanting to help people, which
yeah,
is great. Really wanting to and show some of the dangers of it as well as the brilliance of it. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
yeah. Wow.
And I think, I'm an optimist,
Hmm.
but I would say it's like I think we're going through what I would call the Egyptian proverb. um, trust in God or goddess and or goddess, but tie your camel to the post, you know, because
Yes.
we are going through, as people know, of course, this tumultuous time on the planet. I mean, I've heard that there's more wars going on now than ever in the history of this planet. The wars simultaneously going on over the history of this planet. So we literally are in a World War III. It's
Yeah.
just split. It's just split in different ways, you know.
Hmm.
And so I think hopefully astrology can help us navigate through these difficult times and help us. I like Sri Yukteswar's book, The Holy Science, because he does present an optimistic view that we've come out of Kali Yuga, this dark age, and we've moved into Dwapara Yuga, which is the electrical age, which started, according to him, around 1700 AD or CE,
Yeah.
and that we're on an upward arc towards more states of enlightenment, moving more towards, we could say, higher consciousness. But we're still experiencing remnants of Kali Yuga, the dark ages and things. And the electrical age is connected, can be connected with nuclear war, you know,
That's true.
even these little iPhones that we have, these phones are kind of could be devastating to our psyches, you know, and to our, everybody's, at a picnic and everybody's looking at their phone rather than connecting with other people. And I'm guilty as charged too. So I'm not, I think we're all needing to look at that in terms of just how it's taking away from interpersonal relationships.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
I'm an optimist. I think we're going to come out of this, but it may take a few years, to. But sometimes you just have to hit rock bottom for the in the abyss for the divine to reveal itself.
It's
You
true.
know, it's like a person that's struggling with alcoholism or some other addiction issue, and they kind of have to bottom out so that they wake up and which the beauty of what's going on in the United States is people are waking up and people are protesting and people are taking a more of an active role in the political situation rather than just being a passive recipient to it, you know.
Hmm.
So I think that's the beauty and the breakdown of what's going on,
And
but
that's part of the ascension from like Kali to Dwapara instead of the descension, where there is still that Kali shadow in the midst of the Dwapara Yuga that we're in. Is that if I remembering this correctly, because it's been decades since I read that, it's a 24,000 year cycle, is it? And
correct.
that is how long it takes the Earth theoretically to
Yeah.
venture around the galaxy.
Yeah, it's a 25,000 year cycle. He broke it down more into 24,000. He had 12,000 years of descending towards the depths of Kali Yuga, which would have been about 500 AD, around the fall of Rome. And then now we're on this upward arc, as you mentioned, towards the Satya Yuga, which is the higher ages. But that's a 12,000 year cycle going up, you know. And, right now, if I can do the math here, we're, what are we, about, what are we, 500, do the math, 1,500. Yeah, again, we're out of Dwapara, but we're just still, we've only been out of Dwapara about 400 years, something like that, 400 years.
That's a
So,
barely a blink of an eye.
yeah, little over 300 years. So yeah, we've got a ways to go. But again, it's more of an optimistic view of the evolution of our planet Earth.
We're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Ho-
Yeah.
Hopefully, hopefully. There's a lot of freedom of choice in there. But and is there a particular event, a story that stands out in your life that has highlighted um, this journey for you? I know there have been many, so it's
Yeah.
difficult to ask for just one, but
I think well, actually, I would say meeting my wife, you know, was huge because it's interesting. I'll bring this in now. Back in right after I graduated, got my PhD in '88. I was introduced to a Chinese astrologer from Hong Kong by my friend in the dental school. His Dr. Wong. This was he knew he was from Hong Kong, and he knew of this great astrologer, Chinese astrologer from Hong Kong, and he sponsored him to come over to do readings for us in the United States in San Francisco. So anyway, I booked a reading with him, and it was really powerful. It was not as powerful as Chakrapani, but close second.
Wow.
And anyway, he told me he predicted that I would meet my second wife very soon because I'd gone through a divorce about a year before. And he said it very beautifully. He said, "Your first wife were like clothes that didn't quite fit," is the way he put it. "You'll meet your second wife very soon." And I met Laura like 2 months later, you
Wow.
know. So, and then
Being
with
a
her,
romantic, I must ask, how did
yeah.
you meet?
What's that?
How did you
Sorry.
meet?
We met at a Thanksgiving Eve dinner for Angelus Arian.
Oh my goodness.
They were giving her an honorary PhD because she had a master's degree, but they're from Berkeley, UC Berkeley in anthropology, and but they were giving her an honorary PhD. So we met that night. I was sitting there and I was saving seats for friends, and she came up and she said, "Could you move over one seat?" And I had some girlfriends, not well, one of them was romantic, but anyway, some girlfriends coming up from Santa Cruz, three of them, and I was saving seats for them at this banquet. And Laura kept on persisting. Finally, on the third time she asked, I said, because they still hadn't shown up, and she was so beautiful, I said, "Okay." So I moved over one seat. She sat down, and we proceeded to talk for the next hour and a half, and I tended to somewhat ignore my friends, which was kind of sad, and she did as well. So anyway, we ended up getting together. It was about a month or so later. It was a month or so later. She called me up, actually. She found my phone number and called me up and asked, "Hey, why don't we go out?" So she's very strong, very much more persistent than I am. And so we ended up getting together. But when I looked at her chart, I saw that she had Mars in the seventh house, which usually indicates divorce karma, Kuja dosha, as they call it in India. Kuja means Mars, and dosha means like affliction or difficulty. So anyway, I was a little concerned about that because I was really concerned about that because I'd just gone through a divorce, and I knew that with Laura that it's going to get very serious. And I was like, God, I don't want to go through this again. And she's like 7 years younger than I am, so I just thought, nah, I don't think so. And then, but I said, but I continued to date her because she was just so cool and so beautiful, so cool, such an amazing lady. So anyway, she proceeded to tell me about 2 months later that she had married a guy for him to get a green card.
Mm.
She literally got married and got divorced.
Mars was satisfied.
Yes. And he was from Thailand, and it wasn't romantic at all. It was just a business deal. He paid her $2,000 to go through this whole process of. It's kind of like the movie Green Card. Remember that romantic comedy? I don't know if you remember that. It was a movie called Green Card. But anyway, it was a romantic comedy about the whole situation of having to go through all the testing they do to make sure that you're actually really getting married, that it's not just some fake thing. So anyway, she did all that. She had to learn to speak Thai and some other things to
Oh my
make
gosh.
it all go through. But anyway, she literally got married and got divorced, you know. And in India, if a woman has this in her chart, sometimes they'll do a ceremony where the woman will marry a tree and have a whole ceremony and then get divorced from the tree. And so I always jokingly say to Laura, I said, "Well, you didn't marry a tree, you married a tie instead." So anyway, but I looked at her chart. One of the things that happens in Vedic astrology, which I do a lot of relationship counseling work with, couples therapy work, is that there's a point system which compares the moons for compatibility, and you can get anywhere from like 4 points up to 35 points compatibility. And she and I have like 27, which is considered really high. It's
Wow.
good. It's only one factor, but to me, it's a real cornerstone factor to look at for relationship compatibility, in my estimation. Whereas my first wife and I had like 18, which is kind of average more, but there were a lot of other challenges in our charts, comparing the charts. So anyway, but Laura, we have strong alchemy, strong chemistry between our charts. So our Mercuries are conjoined, our sun signs are conjoined. There's a lot of conjunctions between the charts. So I look at that when I'm looking at compatibility. I like to see a lot of aspects between the charts, even if they're challenging. You know, I'd rather see that than the disconnect. So anyway, to answer your question, that was real life situation for me to meet my wife through astrology, really, in a way, and then to go a deeper dive. Actually, I also showed my daughter Sophia's chart to Chakrapani. We were at a class down in Phoenix, up in Carefree, actually north of Phoenix, and we were at a conference. And I put my daughter's chart up on the screen. She was only about 3 or 4 months old at the time, and I asked people in the class to say what they saw, and people were saying different things. Da 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 da. And then finally, after people tried to analyze their chart for 20 minutes or so, I asked Chakrapani. I said, Chakrapani, what would you say about this chart? And he goes, she is powerful. She is bold. She is a leader, I think, which is true.
It's
She's
true. And she also there are some parts of her charts that really help support yours. I think that helped you have these beautiful daughters. I think
yeah. No, it's true. You take on the karma of your family. Karma. Family to me is destiny. And so my daughter had this Sophia had this thing in her chart where should get really nice conveyances or nice cars.
Mhm.
And sure enough, it's the ruler of her ninth house of good fortunes and the fourth house of automobiles. And so right after, I think right before she was born, I ended up getting a new car, a Lincoln Mercury Villager, because a gold one. So she wanted to ride a golden chariot. She didn't want to ride in my old Celica. So anyway, I always felt it was her karma that got me the good car. So anyway, it's kind of funny how it all works out. But we do, I think, a family system. You're working with each other's charts, and that's why, particularly in a marriage, it's so important to have the charts compared for compatibility before you leap. Because
Absolutely.
if someone's going into a Saturn cycle, and Saturn's a beautiful planet, but if it's really challenged in the chart, it's 19 years, and you're going to take on the karma of the person that you're with to an extent. I mean, it's
Yeah,
still their free will and their choices that they're making and their karma, but you'll still be affected, of course. So, but Sophia's really got a great chart, and then Arya as well. Arya's got a really cool chart. So it's fun to see family system, as it manifests out, through the charts. And again, I believe, like I said, I believe we have free will and the divine grace that's playing a role in our charts. But there are these patterns of destiny, as I like to call them. I like to
exactly.
use destiny rather than fate. You know, I like to use because destiny has a little bit more flexibility to be more malleable. Whereas fate's kind of rigid.
I love
And
that saying, fate is our fate unless we decide to change it.
yeah, and what was it? What was it? Carl Jung said, "That which we do not face in the unconscious, we will live as fate." You know, so
Absolutely.
we can do that inner work, then we have more free will to work with.
Yes. Yes. And with all of that, in your extensive experience, what do you believe is the most transformative aspect of Vedic astrology for people seeking self-awareness or personal
Yeah,
growth?
yeah. I think the goal of it is. moksha is spiritual or self-realization. That should be the goal of astrology. Most people, it's just fine. We need to function. We need to function on this 3D plane. Because again, marriage and children and career and health and all these things are important. But at the end of the day, you know, the highest form of the astrology is to help us towards God or goddess realization, self-realization. So, but I find honestly, few people really want to pursue that. You know, most people want to know about their career and relationships and health, which is great, which is fine. We need a healthy body to function on this plane, and
Yeah.
relationships, career are huge. And like I said, if you can be successful in your work and then utilize that financial success, for example, to help other people, then that's a great thing. That's a great thing. So it all works together, I think. But at the end of the day, I think, again, spiritual liberation, moksha, is really, really the ultimate goal, the ultimate goal.
And by the way, you alluded to a couple of charts and how people can have powerful charts, but choose for them to be um, positive or negative, malefic or benefic. Uh, how does astrology support the idea that we are in extraordinary times, or does it? Are we astrologically in extraordinary times?
No, I think we are. And again, I think it goes back to that idea that we're in this electrical age, which things are really, really manifesting very quickly. And yet, it's a double-edged sword. So how we use it, and how we work with it, again, I think one of the greatest things you can do of political importance is to work on your own consciousness, work on your own state of consciousness. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't be out if your dharma is to protest or be involved politically or do whatever you're to do to help with the journey and help, turn the tide in a more favorable fashion. But my concern is that if we don't be careful, we could really lose our democracy for a while,
Mm.
and I'm an optimist. I have Moon, Jupiter, and Cancer, so I'm an optimist. And I think we're gonna circumvent these potholes in the road that are look pretty ominous as we're heading towards this next year or two. But again, I think I think ultimately we'll come out on top. Come out on top. It just may take a while.
And with free will, this is a difficult question to ask, but do you have any thoughts, predictions, or recommendations on how to navigate the next year, the next 5 years? You mentioned working locally, um, protests, whatever calls to you to do locally. Is there anything more? Is there anything you see in the charts that people should be keeping an eye out for as they do pursue their path?
Yeah, I think again, I think there could be more of a movement, and that's where I started out to talking about when I took that 3 month yoga teachers training course up at Ananda, which is a
Yes.
cooperative. I think there could be some movement more towards that, towards cooperative community where people, like-minded souls, get together and form more community. Again, people could have their own home and everything, but maybe share certain things in common, like a common garden and things like that. I could see things maybe moving in that direction, to create more sangha, more spiritual community, things like that. I think could be helpful. And again, just spiritual practices, meditation, yoga, being in nature. For me, playing tennis, you know, you know,
Yes.
exercise, but something, again, whatever for you. It can be whatever form. I mean, to me, probably one of the greatest forms of spiritual growth is just learning stillness, which again, not one of my strengths, but I hear it's a good thing.
Very good thing.
Yeah, I had a near death experience once, and when I went to the other side, that was the thing I experienced more than anything, was just stillness. It's just perfect, brilliant stillness. And so I think that's part of what we're learning to do, is to still the mind and move in that direction. And who was it, Ramana Maharshi, the great saint, he said that he said it kind of eloquently, which is kind of the other side of the coin, in terms of free will. But he said, I have a quote from him. He said, according to the great ordainer, which we could think of it like God, goddess, that which is meant to happen to you will happen to you, no matter how hard you try to prevent it. And that which is not meant to happen to you will not happen, no matter how hard you try. So he said the best thing to do is to remain silent.
Mm.
So just the stillness, the silence. If when in doubt, just chill out.
Well, you're not getting away with just skimming over what you said. I know we share that beautiful near-death experience. You've actually had a few, but the one you're talking about right now with that experience of stillness, can you give us a little more detail about that?
Yeah, it was when Saturn, it's in my book, when Saturn was transiting over my ascendant to the exact degree and minute, I
Mhm.
was laying at home in my bed at home, and all of a sudden I felt this anvil on my chest and this, like piercing, almost like a knife in my heart. It was really painful. And then my whole body went numb. And I thought, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack. I'm going to die. I just thought I couldn't reach my phone. My body was so numb, I couldn't reach my cell phone. So I was just laying there. And all of a sudden, within a few minutes, I went out of my body, went to the other side, or whatever you want to call it, to the Devaloka, the heavenly realms or something. And it was just this perfect, beautiful stillness. And then I was taken into a room and it was like a projector room. And I think Lord Yama, who's the god of death, was there along with his aide Chitragupta. Chitragupta. So anyway, they had me look at this screen, and I did a life review, of my life, you know. And it probably in clock time, it maybe like it was a half hour or something, and
Mhm.
something like that. But it was like a flash through my life, just these different scenes. And, it was kind of like the good, the bad, and the ugly. Mostly the bad and the ugly, actually. Where I missed the mark, where I maybe hurt someone's feelings or did
Yeah.
something. I mean, I haven't killed anyone, thank God, or done something too horrific, but still, where you did something that was off, was really not behaving correctly. And then at the end of that, that fundamental question, do you want to go back or do you want to stay here kind of thing? And I was meditating or contemplating that question. And the message I got, I think it was just from my higher self, was no, you should go back and clean up your mess. So anyway, came back into the body and it had all this pain still and everything. But I went to the hospital, went to see my chiropractor first, and she kind of helped me calm me down a bit and come down a little bit from that whole journey. But then I went to a medical clinic the next day, and they did all these tests on it. They could find nothing wrong with my physical heart. So I think spiritual heart, you know, uh, Ramana Maharshi talks about it. He's got a little book called The Spiritual Heart. And it's located about two digits away from the sternum on the right side, whereas the physical heart's on the left, and then of course the heart chakra is in the middle. But this is the spiritual heart. And he says what happens is that there's these granthis, or these subtle cords, and that when you're trying to let go of the ego, the cords are cut, and it's very painful. It can be very painful. So I think I went through something like that, like a spiritual emergency that became a spiritual emergence that became an emergency, is what I think happened. I think what happened was I had a Kundalini awakening in my heart chakra in that whole area. And it was like 100 watts going through a 75-watt fuse. So it just kind of blew me out, It took me a long time to come back from that whole experience, let me tell you.
You had to integrate it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And that also makes sense because you had the option of staying or going, as though your karmas for this lifetime were up if you wanted. Um, so completely makes sense. Not everyone is given that option. Um, I know I was. And I'm so grateful you were and that you chose to stay.
Mhm.
Actually, you mentioned Babaji. He was going to leave once because he figured I can stay or go, it's all the same. And his sister said, well, then why not stay?
Mhm.
And thank goodness he stayed.
I think that's what pulled me back too, is my children and my three children and my wife and my work. I was running a huge organization, 500 members at the time,
Whoa.
and and also the college, you know. So this was 2007, so it was like 18 years ago, you know. So I'm going through my Rahu return. So from when 18 and a half year cycle of Rahu. But that Saturn, over my ascendant only occurs once every 29 years.
Mhm.
So it's not like it happens, you know, every day, every day. So it was unusual that I would have it happen in my 50s, to have that kind of really, really, it was an emotional, psychological breakdown I went through after that. It was hard to process that and to come back and be running this huge organization and the college and everything else and trying to be a father and a husband and all that. So
Yeah, because usually the second Saturn return around that age is easier. So in your case, it wasn't. It was, whoa. So was mine. It's supposed to be easier, but
yeah,
it was not in your case. You,
yeah, I had to go through. I always say, as a psychologist, when those books on the shelf start falling off on you, it's a little different than just reading about it. So, I got full experience and I kept asking, why am I having to go through this? And the answer was so you would have more empathy for your clients, people
mm.
you for help. You'll understand more. It's not like just reading about it in a book. You'll understand what it feels like to be depressed or have an anxiety problem or have, panic attacks and things like that. You'll understand it more readily than just, reading about it.
And this book that you wrote is foundational. It really is. It's an incredible resource book. It's very user friendly. The books you're about to write
Mm-hmm.
are like a building upon this foundation. And
Yeah.
it's exactly what you just described. Oh, I'm excited to read those books.
I am too.
In
I
fact, you mentioned Mercury. I'm wearing the emerald per your suggestion for Mercury as well. So when I see that emerald on your finger instead of the Hessonite garden, I will know.
yeah, yeah, you have to. The gemstones sometimes are the game of kings, as one of my teachers would say. You have to
Oh,
be a king or a queen to afford them. So I always recommend substitute gems too. So but it can be color therapy too.
oh,
Sometimes a person needs to work with green as a healing color too.
you're right. I have peridot, jade. You can use any of those things that
Yeah,
go along with emerald. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
help to strengthen mercury. Yeah, yeah, quite
Yes.
often I'll tell people that they need to, excuse me, strengthen mercury. It's even good to drink green, like juicing, things like that. Like to take your supplements in a liquid form, like kale, spinach, spirulina, celery, to literally drink it, so that it can assimilate more readily into your system and live around greenery, lushness, grass, trees, plants. It's kind of soothes the nervous system for any of us.
Yeah.
Any, so it's there.
No matter what cycle you're going through. Well, you chose to stay, and I'm very grateful. And I think everyone listening and who has ever come in contact you is grateful. So, how can people contact you for a reading or a consultation or to know what you're up to when your books come out, things like that?
Yeah, probably the easiest way would be if you go on my website, it's just dennisharness.com, harness like a horse harness.com. And on the website, there's some video of me. And this is actually, kind of, I covered a lot in this hour and a half, that I think I covered as much in any interview I've ever done. So thank you. That was good. Cool. You know, I always I always say with all my Leo in my chart, I like to talk about me. So, but anyway, you asked the question, so I had to answer them. But anyway, um, that's the easiest way. And my email is just dennis@dennisharness.com. So real simple. But there's some articles that I've written on there, and you can order the book through the website, of course, as well. And see, I think in terms of the conference, like I said, I would check it out. Vedic Astrology Sedona.com. That's cool. And then the astrological weekend, as I mentioned, is in mid-September. I'm not organizing that. I'm just kind of helping to support that conference here. It's a lot of really great teachers and a lot of Western and Vedic, kind of a mix of both systems. But anyway, those things going on. And then finally, my friend Kashanati from Philadelphia, who's helping me to co-produce this conference in Sedona, he's putting on a Zoom conference in November also. That's a really large conference that he's done. I think this is his fourth year now doing it. And he's great. It's just wonderful. And there's all these teachers. We're calling actually this one in Sedona. It's kind of got a cool name I came up with. It's called Sedona Vedic Astrology Conference, but the subtitle is the 9 Jewels of the Lotus,
Ooh.
because we have like 9 teachers, and they're really, some of them are amazing. Dr. Frawley and his wife Shambhavi, and you know Camilla Sutton and Joni Petrie, and a lot of these people that you would know that have a strong presence on the internet, and Dr. Pai and Eve Mendoza, and Kashanati is a great teacher too. So it's going to be great, and there's music, and anyway, it's all going to be good. All going to be good. So
Well, so I have an idea. So this video likely will be out after these events. So what I'm going to do is make a few shorts out of this video and release them in the next week. And that way people will have that information, and then they get some to anticipate the full interview, which I thought I knew you. Now I know you so much more. There's so many facets, so much depth. And you said you were a Virgo and you got upgraded to a Leo, and you like to talk about yourself. And I love the saying, um, we've talked about me. Now tell me, what do you think about me? However, you're not the typical Leo. You're also the most humble, one of the most humble spiritual people I've ever met. And so can there be both? You're an evolved Leo.
well, I,
Humility is incredible.
I have Moon Jupiter in Cancer, and
Ah,
David Frawley said he said, "Thank God you have Moon Jupiter in Cancer. Otherwise, you'd be a real jerk."
oh
So
my
maybe
gosh.
that Moon Jupiter in Cancer that kind of helps keep the compassion, keeps the humility. It's in my 12th house, so it's a little more hidden kind of part of me. But I think that's where that comes from. My spiritual name is Dayananda, which means compassionate bliss. And so that's kind of what I'm working towards. Dr. B.B. Rahman gave me that name way back in '92. And that's always been kind of a work in project, work in progress, kind of a project that I've been working on this lifetime, is to develop more of that compassion and bliss. And I think that's one of the things we can do as astrologers, is really, really work on our counseling skills, work on compassion, for our clients, um, leave leave the client with a sense of faith and optimism and hope rather than despair. So I think that's one of the things that we need to do as astrologers, is again to take discriminative action, take our client, help our clients, take discriminative action in their life. And as Yogananda said very well, he said, there is no such thing as fate. We create our own destiny.
Oh, wow. Yes.
He said, what has been done can be undone. One's own will combined with the grace of God can be stronger than the astrological influences. But the influences are still there.
Yes.
But again, we need to show up and, exert our free will and open to the divine grace. Surrender to a higher power, as they would say in 12-step program. Surrender to a higher power.
That is the perfect note to end on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was really fun, Jordania. I hope this is helpful for the people that see it. So may it touch their hearts.
More details about our sessions and seminars can be found on our website, kstechnique.com. That's KSTECHNIQUE.com. And if you've enjoyed your time with us as much as we've enjoyed our time with you, please consider hitting that subscribe and like button. It helps more than you know. I look forward to seeing you in our next video.